Hello and welcome to the AI Show, brought to you by Lenovo. I'm your host, Emily Barrett, and I am thrilled to be your guide into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence. In each episode, we'll be diving deep into the AI universe, exploring the latest innovations, the people behind them, and how these technologies are shaping our future. On this episode, we'll be joined by Paul from Miros, who'll be discussing the future of e-commerce. So let's begin as we head on our journey through the world of AI. Hi, Paul. So thank you very much for joining me today on the show. Do you want to start by just introducing yourself a little bit about you and where you're from?
Absolutely, Emily, and thanks for inviting me over. So I'm Paul, co-founder and chief scientist of Miros. Miros makes it possible to find beautiful products online, but more about that later. Before Miros, I co-founded another company in e-commerce and fashion space called FitsMe. It started as creating shape-shifting robotic mannequins and later pivoted into AI-supported fit advice, how to find clothes that fit. We sold that company to Rakuten, where I kept working, and then afterwards that inspired to create Miros.
So it's fair to say that you are used to working in the spheres of innovation and using technology to do new and cutting-edge things within e-commerce in particular. So do you want to just explain a little bit about what Miros does and what the vision is?
Sure, but actually, can I start with a sad anecdote before we get to the serious business of shopping? Okay, so it goes like this. 100 people walk into a bar because they want to drink. About 3 minutes later, 98 of them walk out, back out again, slightly muttering, maybe I don't want to drink. Maybe not today. At least definitely not here. You'd think something is terribly wrong with that bar, right?
Yeah.
Yet when it happens in e-commerce, we think it is very, very much normal. Think about it. 100 people walk into an e-commerce shop. 3 minutes later, 98 of them walk back out thinking, maybe I don't want clothes. Thing is, we don't think anything is horribly wrong with the shop because it is normal. It is like that in every shop. Alternative is maybe something is horribly wrong with all of those shops.
That's a really interesting way of looking at things.
For me, it brings hope because 2% conversion rate, we don't have to stop there. And of course, we also think that, okay, 2% conversion rates, who suffers from that? It's the shops, it's corporates, let them suffer. But it's actually the people. Because there's another way how to look at the conversion rates, which is, in order to make one purchase, you have to go and visit 50 different shops, spend 3.5 minutes in each of them. That's about 3 hours in total to make one purchase of £80. And if we factor in return rates and even more, that's about five hours of work to make one purchase. I've heard that online shopping is great because it saves time. I'm not sure it does save time. So I think we should change something about that. Stop people wasting 5 hours in a shop to buy one thing.
Yeah, and it's certainly something that I think everybody watching this video will have had experience of. You go to buy something online and you as you say, you walk out of the majority of shops and it does take a few tries till you find the right thing. So I guess part of the reason for that is linked to search functionality and how we look for items that we might want to purchase out there on the internet, because there's such a vast array of places that we can go and spend our money now. So do you want to talk us through how that search process works normally now?
Absolutely. And yeah, as we were also talking about Miros, so obviously Miros is here to solve that problem, exactly that findability problem of people going to shops and not finding things. And The problem is a little bit less when it comes to functional products, car parts, electronics, where everything is very well describable in words. You want to buy an iPhone 15, you type in iPhone 15 and you have found it, it's easy. What if you want to buy something beautiful? And roughly half of e-commerce is actually things that are bought because they look good. It's fashion, it's furniture, it's interior design, it could be many different things. Maybe sometimes even hotel rooms are chosen because they look beautiful rather than something else. And how do you search for those beautiful things? That is the big issue. Because right now when you go to an e-commerce, and actually e-commerce itself is a rather old invention. I mean, it was invented at around the same time that Nokia 3110 was invented. And it has, just like the Nokia, it has stayed the same. It hasn't changed much. So the classical thing to do is you can either go into a category and browse, but it has its own problems. Like, how many products can you actually browse humanly? Not too many. A typical person can do maybe 100, 200 products in one shopping trip maximum. Or the most common way is you go to a search bar. But how do you search for beautiful things? Beauty is very hard to describe in words, and people quite often don't really find the right words to describe the thing they're looking for. But the search, of course, fails in many other ways as well.
So do you want to explain a little bit about how Miros is addressing that problem? Because it is certainly something that I think everybody who has ever shopped online, which I think is the vast majority of people nowadays, will have faced. I mean, we were talking briefly earlier and you mentioned the eBay problem, where there are hundreds of thousands of items and it takes such a long time to go through them all. And my understanding is Miros is looking at ways to solve that problem. So do you want to explain a little bit about how you're doing that?
Absolutely. So in essence, there's two main modes of how we're going to help people. Because sometimes people do have words. And that's an easier one to solve. It's still not solved in a normal e-commerce. You might have gone into a shop and searched for T-shirt with asymmetric stripes in sage green. If you have ever done this kind of search, you will know that it will give 0 results. And that's because most of the current e-commerce search is based on keywords. It will only surface the products that have been tagged using the same words that you are using. But there's so many words, you cannot possibly tag products with each and every possible one. So normally, if you search for anything more interesting than red dress, the search is going to give 0 results, and that is obviously a failure. This can be nicely helped now. And I'm actually a little bit surprised that e-commerce hasn't taken this up. So for example, in case of visual products, it's possible to look at the product images. I mean, not just people, but AI can look at product images. And for example, OpenAI's Clip has been available for several years now. It has the potential to take in images and turn that into all sorts of semantic embeddings, basically, where you can do a text search about using any sort of words and get results. So this kind of semantic vector search is one way to help people, because that makes products searchable via the images using any words that you would desire. So it would take care of those people who do enter complex search terms into the search bar. Okay. But there's much more failure happening besides those people. Because most people, they just search for red dress or something else very basic, very simple, jacket. And Do you know what happens if you search for red dress on eBay?
I cannot imagine the number of results that you would get if you typed red dress into eBay.
Yeah, I checked it out. You get about 600,000 results. And if you want to go through all of them, it would take about 2 months of full-time work. It's not a reasonable thing for anyone to do. So essentially, even those searches that deliver lots of results, I would consider them failures. Largely also because they actually fail to capture the full intent of what the user is looking for. Because even the people who search for red dress, it is not actually what they're looking for. If they would really only want a dress that is red, they would enter red dress, get the search results, sort by price, and buy the cheapest one. There might be some people like that, but shops are not going to make any money out of those people. Most of the people who search for red dress, they actually have some very specific requirements about the dress, about the length, about the cut, about all sorts of things. They just choose not to tell them to the shop, partly because they don't believe that the shop is able to listen to them. But the bigger part is, firstly, it's really hard work to spell out what it is that you want. The language is not really made for describing visual things. So people don't want to figure out what it is they want, and quite often they are even not able to. A lot of the consumer preferences are hidden inside their subconscious mind, so that they will know that it's good when they see it, but not before. So most of the people who search for items, they don't reveal their preferences. They're not even able to reveal their preferences. And that's where Miros comes to help with the wordless search, where you don't have to use any sorts of verbal language at all, but rather you will react to images. We will show you more images to test you out based on what you've learned from the first interactions. And so it goes in an iterative feedback loop until we have found out what you want, but not just we, until you have found out what you want.
That sounds super cool. Certainly, I know that I'd find something like that useful in my shopping habits. And I imagine it's also got wider implications and applications than just e-commerce, because there are other instances where people don't exactly know what it is they're looking for. So I imagine that this can help with some of those applications as well.
Absolutely, because I mean, beauty exists way beyond e-commerce. As mentioned, I mean, you could use it to choose a hotel room. You could use it to communicate with your interior designer to tell him or her what it is exactly what you want in your room, or for just communicating any visual sorts of ideas. Here's an example. I don't know if you've ever tried playing around with Midjourney or DALL-E or any of the image generators.
Yeah.
Initially, it's fun. You enter like, draw me a dog, it draws a dog. But as soon as you want to start using it for anything useful, it turns out that Midjourney is a little bit like an evil genie. It gives you exactly what you asked for, which is absolutely not what you want. Getting the style precisely right is almost impossible, because you will see the image, you will see that it is wrong, but it's quite impossible to put into words what is wrong about the image. And that's where the visual, I would call it the visual language of Miros would come to help, because it would iteratively allow you to refine and explain what's your true intent, what it is that you really want.
Yeah, and I think that is going to massively change the way that we are able to communicate with, product providers and with each other, if we are able to communicate not just using words, but to communicate visually as well. It definitely changes the way we will work together to purchase things and also explain concepts to people as well, I imagine.
Precisely. It could be something that could be used in everyday communication. I don't know, you go to a hairdresser, you want to explain what it is you want out of the hairstyle. You go to police to describe the suspect.
Yeah.
Or you just, there's plenty of opportunities to communicate visually.
Yeah, there certainly are, and as you say, there are many opportunities where actually being able to communicate visually rather than using words is going to be more effective than using words as we currently would. So, in terms of going back to e-commerce, in terms of the future of that, how do you see the future of that changing, and how Miros might impact that future?
So e-commerce hopefully is about to start changing, and a lot of the AI tools that are now here are going to help to do that. Not all of that is just purely mirrors. There's other good stuff around. Large language models, they're going to help make the functional e-commerce even better, so that there's lots of information contained in the product descriptions that the language models are able to process quickly. And for example, Amazon is coming up with Rufus, the AI assistant, so that you can use natural language to just converse with the shop. It's going to help all those categories. But Rufus is not going to help the visual categories, and that's where Miros is going to help interact with the shop. It allows people to get better products, but also I would say it would allow the shops to fulfill the main function, which is communication. Because we might think shop is to do about display or transportation, but I'd rather think shop is mostly a communication device. The function of an e-commerce shop is to communicate customer preferences and the properties of the products available in the shop. And if these can be effectively communicated, then a customer is getting precisely the thing that they're dreaming of, and that's when a shop is providing value. So the future shops will provide a lot more value simply because they will maximize the bandwidth of communication.
It's a really interesting way of thinking about things, because, yeah, as you say, a shop isn't just there to put products in front of you. It's that communication. There needs to be that feedback loop between shoppers and the shops.
Exactly, because if we think of the shops nowadays, the communication is amazingly limited. Let's say the same query of red dress, the information content of that is about 2 bytes. It's 2 bytes because when you're using keywords, one word is not 8 bytes, that is the amount of letters, but rather, if we think of it, if it's one word out of 2,000 possible words, the informational content of that word is about 1 byte. And a typical shopper, they do a couple of search queries, 3 or 4 bytes each. Maybe you go into a category, that's another maybe one or 2 bytes of information. So altogether, the entire shopping journey, the shopper leaves only about 10 bytes of information into a shop. I mean, how can we hope that the shop will do good work in helping them find relevant items with that? So this should definitely change.
Yeah, and it's one of those key differences between e-commerce platforms and physical shop floors, because you are able to generate much more of that feedback loop on a physical shop floor when there are other people to interact with. So people who are working in the shop will notice that we don't tend to sell many of these, and this is people's feedback on it. They can find out why, they can engage in a conversation. Whereas on an e-commerce platform, that is so much harder to do with the technology as it currently stands.
True. Yeah, so it's almost like that the physical shops already have ChatGPT implemented on the shop floor, and they have used that technology for years, centuries, and have liked it. So obviously, it would make good sense to use the same sort of technologies in the e-commerce shops as well. And when it comes to information content, already starting to use the vector search and NLP technologies will increase the information content quite a bit, because then we're not talking about 1 byte per word, but rather 2 or 3 or 4 bytes, plus people get to use more words. So easily the information content of a trip can be increased to something around 100 or maybe even 200 bytes, which is still not a lot.
It isn't a lot, but it's significantly more than they currently have. And I guess
Absolutely.
using image search capabilities increases that information flow even further, right?
Exactly. So you can imagine that using the proper text search would increase the information content about 10x, which means if it's a good shop with a lot of products, it will improve the shopping experience probably also about 10 times. But that's when the wordless search comes in, and that has significantly higher information content, because we can think of it during the wordless search, you convert each of the images, each of the product images, into a vector, a dense vector describing the product features, and that's typically about 1 or 2 kilobytes. That's all dense information, and that's where the magic of subconscious processing comes in, because a human is able to look at an image and process about 2 kilobytes of information and compare it to the internal preferences, and do all that within half a second. So in 30 seconds, basically, you are able to process about whatever 50 kilobytes of information, and then react to that information. So if we are able to use those reactions and use the information content in those images in a clever way, we can get much more information from the user than is ever possible as a language.
Yeah, and that is certainly a communication avenue that needs to be opened up for retailers to be able to, change that underlying principle that we talked about at the start, where so many people walk into an e-commerce platform and leave within minutes without buying anything. So one of the things that we were chatting about just before the show as well was this concept of faster than the speed of thought. So do you want to explain a little bit about that and how that's going to impact e-commerce as well?
Exactly. That's essentially the long-term vision of Miros, to break some unbreakable limits and do a faster than the speed of thought communication. But before we get how we do that, what do you think, how fast is the speed of thought?
It probably depends on what you're thinking about, doesn't it?
Definitely. But in any case, speed of thought might not actually be as great as you are thinking of, and there's a nice experiment to find that out. And you can actually do it in your homes quite easily. And the experiment is this. First, you read from 1 to 10 as quickly as you can out aloud, and do it maybe 5 times in a row and time it. When you have done that, then you will know your speed of mouth, how quickly you can spell out words. And once you're done, then do an introduction of yourself or any other sort of unpracticed text, and see if you can speed up, if you can keep up the speed of mouth. I'm pretty sure you cannot, because when you have to choose your words, it will be limited by the speed of thought. And that's how you can measure the speed of thought. It's normally about 200, maybe even 300 words per minute. And in terms of information content from different sources, it's about 10 to 50 bits per second. So it's not huge.
Yeah.
And that's why I think we can go faster than that. by employing, as I mentioned, the subconscious processing capabilities, which are thousands of times faster than the conscious thought. So when you are interacting with images, processing kilobytes per second, when you can utilize that information effectively, then the speed of communication is not limited just 10 or 50 bits, but to several hundred or maybe even kilobits per second.
And how do you see that speed up of information transitioning changing the future of e-commerce?
With e-commerce, obviously, it's about findability. It means people will find better products, the ones that will satisfy them more and more. It will also mean that the future belongs to the shops with large product selections. Because right now, eBay, Amazon, Alibaba, they don't have a big advantage over other shops which have maybe only 10,000 products, because it doesn't matter that Amazon has 200 million items of clothing, you won't be able to find them anyway. But when the findability is solved, it becomes really hard to be a shop that only has some of the items, who has to compete with a shop that has all the items and everything is findable. And if you go there, it's almost guaranteed that you will find something that will delight you more than you could even expect.
Which sounds like that brings us back to that problem we were discussing at the start of being able to get more customers to not leave your e-commerce platform without finding what they want.
Exactly. So it will improve things for the shop, obviously. Conversion rates would go, well, they won't go to 100%, but they will significantly increase. But of course, I'd say the best impact is that people don't have to waste time anymore. They can, if they want something, they can just go to the shop, find it, buy it, and be happy and do something reasonable with their lives.
Yeah, rather than spending hours scrolling through different red dresses on whatever shopping platform you choose to use. So if people want to find out more information about Miros, is there somewhere they can go to do that?
Sure. Come to our website, miros.ai. And also, I'm wondering, the entire mission of creating faster than the speed of thought communication, it's not an easy one. If you want to give us a hand, contact me by LinkedIn, send the words, maybe you have some ideas, and let's figure out this fast communication together.
It's certainly going to be a really, really interesting challenge to work on for sure. And it looks like it could change, I mean, not only the landscape of e-commerce, but so many other areas where we can more appropriately use pictures to communicate than we do words.
Exactly. I mean, tied to product design, it means we will have more beautiful products. We will have more beautiful homes. Everything visual around us will be more pleasing and satisfying because we are able to communicate that and get those products made.
Which sounds like it generates a much better world for us to live in, right? We waste less time and we get to enjoy more beauty. And what could be fairer than that, right? So thank you very much for joining me today, Paul. I've really, really enjoyed speaking to you and learning more about Miros. And thank you, everybody else, for joining us. We hope to see you next time for our next episode of The AI Show.